Morning everyone, I hope you're very good. So I'm Veronique and I'm back with a new videos focused on Scope International Society. So the main topic today is going to be focused on the following subject, which is creating the supply chains of African brown to the European markets. So this is the thesis that I write in 2015. The thesis that I write, you can see the volume of it. So this is what I've been writing regarding that, and you can see here today, this is the African brand that I'm actually wearing right now. And these dresses that I wear this is the dress of African brand that I wear right now. So it's just to say it. So following that, I'm just going to give you a view of the first page of here of African design and African. This is our culture. This is what we design. We commercial that to the markets for any events. Wear this specially brown for events and marriage and baptize and regular day. You can wear that dress. But most of the garment we have the meaning of each garments in this. That's why we're using that for different events. And you can also using that for your own needed every day. You can wearing that is very good for the weather. So let me start in terms of supply chain. What is the impact of African brand in the continent, in the African continent, and the collaborations that they have between Europe markets. In the Europe market, this actually works. What is the what make them take the market, European market, and also they also take international market. So let me start with what I've been studying. So let me start it. So the problem is this project analyze what the supply chain brand chain doesn't function properly within the continent, African continent. So therefore, the actual supply chain of manufacturing based on the company that I've been seeking for my dissertations was CICAM Cameroon. And we're going to discuss about the different issues such as through the literature review, continent is debt, and are the low revenue to compete with the Chinese market. There are numerous entrepreneurship of textile manufacturing led by family to survive. Chinese market controlled the African materials and sold are very cheap. The African prefer to buy those cheap African material instead of support African textile and brand manufacture. Manufacture lack of economic of scale that has an impact on the projections and quality of the materials. Skill has to be improved for a better quality and also touch the entire markets within the continent and overseas. The local manufacturer doesn't have no the doesn't know the demand of the market. This project analysis is actually to analyze the current supply chain of African super or African brands challenging CICAM in Cameroon. The operations of CICAM is elaborate over the Cameroon country, but doesn't have any markets within our country in Africa and overseas because the productions only cover the current demand of our Cameroon itself. So the purpose of these stations was really to discuss why supply chains as a most and manufacturing of the textile within the African continent and that operates in a local country. By understanding the current supply chains, the research will give the solutions of those companies that can outsourcing and manufacturing in European markets. So to extract that European markets use the material and not only use the pattern and the print of the items, which is the controlled African brands, provide origin behind to the European markets. So be originals is to differentiate the competitor. So then the result of this research was really focused on the analysis of the chain within the continent and in the case study that about the current supply chains on African textiles brand that demonstrate that in a term of the continent, the industry of textile brand is already affecting because the challenge. In addition, they should be effective financially and there's a key from the government. The government has a lot goes through the supply chains in African brands, in African market, actually in African continent, African supply chain. So it's following with the help of properly within the industry and the materials and skills. So as I've been talking regarding that, I've done this dissertation at the Huddersfield University back in the day. So the main point that I'm going to talk about today is focused on the literature review that I've been studying on the summary content is talking about what is the supply chains and the strategy that lead the supply chains, the vendor selections in the supply chains that impact the collaboration with the supplier that are effective and impact the supply chains, the collaboration that increase share of wallet, the longer the collaborations, the lower costs, the building and the effective teams, and also the technology that African continent can provide to manufacture and to produce the garments, and also a case study based on the CICAM, the case study, and then I'm going to following and straight away talking about because I'm to establish this dissertation. I've been made the survey questions in different towns. I started from Huddersfield, many students, and also retail such as Zara and Next, and then Pretty Big Things, and then Pretty Sitting and Zara. So I made the survey question to those retailers and also the students from the university. When I came back, I want to also make a survey questions in Europe, such as in France, in Germany, and Switzerland. The was of open, like going straight face to face to the grow, and I was asking the questions regarding the garment. So let me start with the literature review based on the supply chains of African brands. So what was being studied based on that, this is the following that we first of all the questions that I wanted to ask to most of you here today. What is supply chains? What is the supply chains for you? What is a supply chain? What is the meaning of supply chain? So supply chains is the variety of the materials, informations and finance, and they move in the process from supply chain manufacturer to the wholesaler, to the retailer, and to the consumer. Supply chain management involves coordinating and integrating this flow within and the company. It is said that it makes a goal on any effective supply chain system to reduce the inventory. So this is an example of the supply chains here that I've been doing for this dissertation in 2015. So we can see here on this figure that the supply chains get such the following stakeholder, which are the supply, the manufacturing, the logistics, and the retail. Those one must collaborate in a way that the end of the project must be delivering at the right destination. So let's also talking about the following. The dissertation are quite very vast. So I will mainly say the key points that will be very useful of it. So as I said earlier, we just give it a definition of the strategy of the supply chain. The supply chains is the end to the informations, the projects, and the money and the reasons strongly impacting organizations such as in project cost, capital, requirements, speed to the makers, and service perceptions about orders. And also there is four elements based on the supply chains, that strategy and activity and the supply connections and combinations of activity basically. So it's also stress out the market research, the marketplace, the organizations, they value the proposal, the competitions positioning, the internal process and linking the supply chain process and the business strategy. And all those factors actually impacting the supply chains of the market. So it's very important that the organizations acknowledge the unique value of the organizations, the positions of the organizations, the framework of the organizations, and the focus managerial of the organizations, and the internal process, supply chain process of the organizations. Such framework is regarding the customer, the supply, the technology, the development, and the economic factors that make the competitions of the industry sectors based on the four details that have been said, that focus on the demand variations and demands, and the following of it. It's also mainly focused on the because there's a fault of it to and to acknowledge the project life cycle. You know, before to make like a proper understanding of African brand to the open market and the continent himself, it's important to know the market mediations costs that can impact the supply based on the project life cycle, like how these brands actually expands, and also how this actually change to the fashion industry, and how the market and demands of these materials, who are the grow, who are the people, who are the customer who use who like to wear and buy this brand. And then the value is really to understand the supply chain approach and the quality and the winner, the winner based on the proposal the price of it. It's also required the managerial focus, which is a competition positions of the supply exchange process. That's the between area government and decisions that made the supply chains to be very focused on it, and the internal process that's impacting the connections and the combinations of the supply activity that is under the source of the delivery. So if we are, and I'm giving an example of the factor that process the supply chains, it's focus on the zone of the sourcing buffering in impacting the inventory of an organizations. It's impacting the way organizations actually sharing data between each others, and also the company point order to order penetration point, that where the order has been received, where the project has been actually a requirement has been answered according to the customer requirements, and define the customizations labels. This is mainly focused on the manufacturer's process, following the zone of demand of the buffering inventory times, and then an excess capacity. This is also on the manufacturing process, the demand profile, variation strategy level of the demand and the time. This is also in the manufacturing processes. Workload level, it's also regarding the variations of the workload until the time. So it's also linking to the manufacturing processes that link into the sourcings, and then the assets utilizations of rates that demonstrate the level of the utilization of the key assets. That's mainly production cycles, and then end by the production cycles after order to entry, transportation lead time. This is for the delivery, and the order cycle time for order entry to received by the customer. This is between the manufacturer and the customer. So it is really important for an organization to acknowledge the factor of this supply chain process, to be able to control the market and have an access or bring the profit to the organization. So now, if I'm going deeper to, I'm talking deeper on the supply chain itself, because I'm talking about supply chains. There's a need of understanding there's a need to have knowledge in terms of the supply chains. Any organizations, as I said previously to the following videos before, any organizations who would like to have their own business, who would like to outsource single good, or would like to communicate and have competitive and oversee even in the internal, the organic in the internal, the country, location, regional or international, must understand the supply chain's meaning. So a vendor selection is impacting the strategy and on organizations in terms of objective, in terms of quality, in terms of delivery, in terms of cost. It's the specificity of this vendor, how he actually demonstrates and design the materials. It's a systematic evaluate the technical, economic, and the performance of an organization, basically, so that the organizations who establish the supply chains can make the selections of the vendor who's responding to the actually the demand, the responding to the market according to an organization. It is the key point. Following with the collaboration with the supply that impacting the supply chains. The time that you collaborate with your supply, it means that you reduce waste, it make an efficiency and effectiveness to your supply chain network, because you meet the demand of the customer, you meet the growth of the markets, you increase your market share. And also this is an advantage in terms of innovations, that the way you innovate your organization, you may, because you understand the markets, and the collaboration actually increases sale volume. The more you collaborate, the more the sale volume is increased, the more the days from downstreams buyer, lower operations costs, and the relationship of mouth refill and new project and producers innovations borrowed from the working relationship with the trusting partner. So it is the key to control and understand the market. So the collaborations can be expense if you're an organization who want to expand its business, like in terms of the measurement of the markets, like understanding the increase if your target is focused on increasing sale and with the existing customer and also with the competitor, and it's also based on the price and then the customers, like the time they've been with the customer, when and how, and also the business with you, and then the cheaper part too. So the best value is having buyer and supplier relationship that is based on the value, consistent delivery on the value. And it's in terms of the quality, time, delivery, return management, combination of this, and the buyer increase percentage of the pushes for individual supply for long run. The longer collaborations is mean the lower cost. The more you in long-term collaborations with your stakeholder is actually make a trust and make the organizations to reduce the costs. And also depends if it's a very a big relationship with your suppliers, you just can negotiate with them. So the cost operation uh, acknowledged between the buyer and the seller. So it depends the understanding of how the understanding of the market has been made. So following such informations, also there's a building an effective supply chain team. So, for example, a manufacturer who have effective supply chains should build an effective supply chain team. In addition, short term, long term, is very important supply chains goal for the rest of the team, like in terms of talent, skill, personality. So it's also really the structure and understanding of African textiles, like the brand look manufacture, the national manufacture, and the analyzing of the current issue of the manufacture that it has. In addition, it's like it's a leader. The leader must really put in positions to make the market of the supply chains to be very developed for an effective reducing the cost, basically. So if we I made it like an example from the videos, previous videos that I made on the chat on the Facebook and also on the YouTube. There's a video where the African continent consolidates. They work in it with as an organization's brand. So I'm gonna add those information there to see that how in our continent organization actually work neither collaborates to make the supply chain much more easier in terms of trade internationals. So there is a specific group